This Dark Wolf series podcast is brought to you by Bravo Company Manufacturing.
Listen, whatever you're doing, wherever you are right now, you do not have to carry this weight alone.
I called to say thank you. You always believed in me, brother, when no one else would. And I won't forget that.
Ben? Ben?
Dark Wolf was your idea. I mean, you remember calling, it was summer 2022, show had just come out, #1 Prime Video for the terminal list. Everybody's excited, and you have a pretty packed schedule, obviously. And I was thinking like, maybe we pivot to Vietnam. I wrote up this whole Vietnam thing, even though I hadn't written Cry Havoc yet.
Right.
And as I had that, I never sent that out to anybody because then you called when I was like putting the final touches on that. And you're like, what do you think about doing a Ben Edwards origin story? And I was like, that is a fantastic idea. Let's do that.
Yeah, that's right.
How did you, so when did you start thinking about that?
Well, I was sitting right here at this desk in my office, and I was having a conversation about my future and being an actor and being a producer. And we were all just so blown away at the success of the terminal list, and the audiences really showed up. I think it was something new for Amazon at the time and Prime Video at the time, because it connected with a group of people who don't often have content created for them. It feels like there's a lot of coastal entertainment, but this felt like it was, middle America, a lot of people in the South, a lot of just like red-blooded Americans who were like, yeah, I want to watch this guy's story. I really like it. The same people who have connected to your book. And so I was thinking like, the longest version of it is one of the reasons shooting Terminalist season 1 worked so well was because it's shot in California. And because as I have, 4 kids, 3 of whom are below 5. And, I was just trying to stay home. And granted, Lila hadn't been born yet, but I was with Catherine, and I was like trying to figure a way to shoot something in California so I could stay grounded and stay home. And so we shot it in California, which is amazing. Shot it in Los Angeles, and the story took place in Los Angeles, so it really made sense to do a TV show here in LA. And then I was like, yeah, if it's in success, we're going to go down the road. We're going to have more episodes. We're going to have more seasons, and those will be based on the books, which had come out at this point. And I knew that they didn't take place in California. You weren't going to shoot True Believer in California because it really goes global. So but that's like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We're lucky enough to even get a season 2. You know what I mean? Oftentimes shows like this might get canceled if they're not good enough. But it was such a hit that it made sense. And then I started thinking to myself, like, well, I can't immediately go off and do a show that's international. Lila was just born. And I was like, but also our audience needs to be satiated. And if we do inevitably eventually do a season 2, we're going to try to introduce these characters, Mo Farouk, Raife Hastings, and how are we going to do that? And that's when it kind of all struck me. It was like this big 10-year plan of, we can do Ben's origin story because he was a real fan favorite. Taylor, people loved him. He's fantastic. His role as Ben, our sort of back and forth, the fun we had in our banter.
Headaches.
Oh man, I'm good. I just didn't sleep last night.
Well, I wouldn't either if I was staying at that house, man. You should just crash here. It may come as a shock, but I have not washed those sheets since you last slept in them.
Dude, you've never washed those sheets.
Exactly.
People really responded well to that. And so I thought we could kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone of introducing these characters that are pivotal in the True Believer season 2 of the Terminalist flagship show, but also let Taylor cook because he did such a great job in season one. And so that's really how it came together. And I didn't want to talk to anybody unless you were into it. And so that's when we kind of I made that call to you, and then I did a low key call to Taylor, like before I go and get people excited about this, would you be open to that thing? And he was excited about it. And so slowly just kind of talked to the various people who are the producers on the show and got to sign off on everybody before we kind of put it into motion. And so, yeah, that's how it came to be.
Awesome. Awesome. It's so good. So every day I get messages from people that say, "Hey, I just watched it." But also I'm like, "You're just watching it now? Why were you waiting?" But people have kids and school and all these different
Hmm.
things. So people kind of just wait till they can sit down and do it. And everybody
Hmm.
has a different time frame depending on what they have going on in their lives. But everybody I've talked to loved it. Book tour, everybody loved it when I asked on book tour. Because I think we still had like one, maybe two episodes to drop when I was on book tour for Cry Havoc. And I asked people, and these big audiences, and I asked them, and everybody was so excited about Dark Wolf.
People loved it. It was a big show. It was the number one show, and it was opening. Came out around the time of the summer I turned pretty, so it was really powerful to be kind of neck and neck with that show. It was a huge hit, so I look at it as a massive success, and I think the platform does as well. So it's really exciting to do something, and you don't always want to base your feeling around a show on critical acclaim or on commercial success, but it does feel good to get either of those or both of those. And so the critics really like the show, and also audiences turned up to see it, so that's really exciting.
Yeah. I guess I need to start writing more books that take place in LA. That'll be
Yeah.
my this conversation. Everything takes place in LA. James
Well,
Reece
I
in
want to be
LA.
able to shoot in LA if I can. I did The Way the Warrior Kid is a film, and Mercy, both of those shot in Los Angeles, and so it's nice to be able to do that. It's wild. Nothing like the landscape has changed so much in this business. I've been in LA for 26 years. I've never seen so few things being shot in Los Angeles, and so to be able to bring two shows or two movies, a show and a couple of movies here to LA, people are thrilled. I mean, they're like sleeping in their own beds, and they like that. So it's
Yeah.
nice to be able to shoot in LA when you can. But I also understand it doesn't necessarily make sense, and especially with True Believer, because True Believer is so global. And we didn't shoot it in LA, but man, we shot some awesome locations.
Oh yeah. South Africa stuff is absolutely incredible. The boat stuff is so great.
The boat stuff is so
Toronto,
good,
everything. Toronto really dealt. I mean, that crazy place with the helicopters. I mean, that looks like Ukraine. And
dude. 100%. Yeah,
I've been to Ukraine.
that 208 finale is awesome.
There's
And
helicopters in the helicopter. I shouldn't be saying that it's a spoiler. Okay, well, I guess it's not really a spoiler saying there are helicopters in True
there are
Believer.
helicopters. Yeah. Tune in.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, great. I was gonna watch it.
I think yeah. I think yeah. So 24. I mean, obviously that came out in fall 2001, and I mean right around September 11th. It was crazy. I remember I was in Okinawa, and or not Okinawa. Yeah, I was from Guam to Sasebo, Japan, and there was an Entertainment Weekly or something sitting there in this little hangar where they were housing us to do a red cell operation against a ship. So swim in the middle of the night. This is before September 11th, like a week before. Like swim in the middle of the night, see if you could plant a Soviet made limpet mine, so like a mine that has a magnet on it to the ship and get out without being seen on the surface of the water. Because we know we can do it underneath with the rebreathers, but if you can swim in like somebody who can't use a rebreather, could somebody do that? And
Right.
so we're doing that. We're in this little, and we did, but we were in this little hangar thing, and there's an Entertainment Weekly, and it was talking about the three shows coming out that fall, and it was 24, Alias, and then a show that didn't really hit. I think it was called The Agency or something like that. So they had three
Mhm.
like CIA spy type terrorism shows coming
Yeah.
out fall of 2001, which is
Wow.
insane. And then we watched it with our daughter, who's she's in college, and we watched the first season with her over Christmas break. And
Yeah.
I don't know if they had this because they had a plane and this bad guy, for those who remember, skydives out and the plane blows up behind her type of a thing. And I think they cut that part because it was too close to September 11th with planes exploding.
Ah.
So I think it just showed her like landing on the ground and then they talked about it. I'm not positive about that, but I think so. That was a long way of me saying I need James Reece in LA, saving LA from nuclear disaster, bio disaster, chemical disaster, assassinations. We might need to do that.
Well, I mean, there's Which one is it? Devil's Hand?
Yeah, Devil's Hands domestic.
That's a
Yeah.
domestic. That's a domestic story. That could be a good one.
Yep.
We could
Yeah.
potentially shoot that in like Torrance or something in the valley.
Totally. Totally. We
Yeah.
need James Reece to save Los Angeles
We
again.
need to say, we do. Good point. We do. We sure do.
Welcome to the suck, brother.
Good to be back.
Good to see you, man. Missed you, brother. Just in time.
When you think about Ben, played by Taylor Kitsch, what makes him so different from Reese and Raife when you look at that triad?
There's a certain level of Taylor's own heart that he brings into this character that just sets him apart from Reese or from Raife. I think that was the one thing I learned in as I've worked closely with a lot of people who had made it through BUD/S training or gone through the Navy SEAL program or were Navy SEALs in combat or another, I've now met maybe a dozen folks that were Navy SEALs that I'm relatively close with. And I can say that there is always a common denominator with all of these men, and that would be their physical strength, their mental, their ability to process things quickly, like just really their mental processing speed, their demeanor, and their grit. So their will, their strength, and their intelligence. Those three things. That's a common denominator. Other than that, complete wild fucking crapshoot. Totally different human beings. And there's like some of them are extra rebellious and total iconoclasts. Others are more like conforming to the ideals of certain, politics, and others are just going to be rebels, and others are going to be absolute angels and helpers, and some are going to be alcoholics and abusive, and some are going to be really thoughtful, kind guys who would never touch alcohol. It's like everyone is very, very different. And so Ben, what makes him different is something that sets Taylor apart as a human being too, is like he just marches to the beat of his own drum. He's a bit of a Jack Kerouac character as both a character and as a human being, as the actor. I mean, he rides his motorcycle through Argentina. He chases wolves with his camera. There's just something just out of reach with him as a person. Like I started my relationship with Taylor as just being a fan of his from Friday Night Lights, but have gotten to become his friend through the course of all of this. And there's still a mystery around him that I can't quite put my finger on. And I think it's the same thing with Ben. And so I like that about Ben. Ben is also somebody who's not going to necessarily like Reese is somebody who's in it in terms of his leadership, being a commander. He kind of keeps himself a little bit separate from his men. He wants to be righteous. He believes in his country. He believes in the West. Understands that it's not perfect and that there are drawbacks to everything, but ultimately believes in what he's doing. And in that way is more of a rule follower than Ben. Ben is all heart and emotion and is willing to paint outside of the lines if that's going to get him what he needs. Like, you talk about Once an Eagle a lot, and there's no Abagnale in Reese. Reese is closer to Damon, as he wants to be the best version of who he is, and he's learning through the course of his career and through the course of his life that some of these institutions that he truly believed in, he may have been naive to believe as much as he did. And so I think there's that, but I think Ben has got that natural cynicism in him already, to where something else in his life caused him to be cynical before the machinery kind of ate him up and spit him out, the way it kind of does with Reese a little bit. And then Raife got cynicism because of his relationship with the CIA, with the wars, with his family, with Rich and his dad, and everything that they had done before. And he's just a guy who's wanting to do the right thing. I think he's a righteous man, and he's trying to be righteous, but he's got more wisdom than Ben in that way. He has the experience of his parents and of his uncles, and the discernment to help him make his decisions. Ben's kind of running on raw emotion and rolling the dice a little bit more. He's more of a gambler, I think. Ben, he's taking a few more chances.
Ben, I need to know that you can find the brakes.
Understood? Understood. You have my word.
That is awesome. When you talk about those three characters, like the casting, I mean, obviously you optioned it, and obviously I thought about you playing this character before I even knew you, which is still a crazy story when I tell it to people. But you couldn't have gotten three better people to portray these characters, and then also just good human beings. It's not that you guys are all fantastic actors. You guys are all great people.
I know this book. This is the third time you've given me this.
That's right. It's one of the most significant books on military leadership ever written. And I want you to fucking read it.
I will. Thank you, Reeser.
Yeah, Once an Eagle. I'm talking to my agent, but I want to do a reprint of it because it's been out of print for a while, and have that letter that I used to write people that I put in the front. I'm going to do a different version of that, or a similar version of that. Have that be the forward, and then the letter that I had in the back, have that be the afterward. And so reprint out there, have people talking about it again. Get mostly young people hopefully reading that thing again as they move into whatever they're going to move into as they leave high school or college or whatever they're doing. So I really want to get that going.
I think that's important. I think that's really important. In fact, that context made the reading experience for me all the more valuable. Like getting your perspective on the character and what it means, because it's a cool story and it's a great and by the way, you've earned it. Like you've earned it as a voice in the military thriller, and this now kind of historical fiction. You're maybe the most prolific voice out there right now, and so I think you giving a forward to that book, I think Anton Myra would appreciate that.
Oh man, thank you. That is awesome. It reminds me to actually ask my agent about it again. This Q&A is brought to you by Huxworks. All right, this one's from Kelly Slayton on Instagram. Kelly, of course, I noticed this handle here, and thank you so much for all your support. And the question is, at some point, I think I recall you saying that there may be a Dark Wolf book. Is something like that still in the works? It goes on to say, I know there's a new James Reece novel coming. This is true. And a new nonfiction, also true, that I hope is about Pan Am 103 and the new Fourth Option series. But I'm sure you have a few spare minutes to write a Dark Wolf book. I believe there's a smiley face on there as well. So yes, my whole plan with this was to do a novelization. So a novelization is a book based on a screenplay, and they used to be popular years past, but they've kind of fallen out of fashion as of late. Quentin Tarantino did one for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but for the most part, they don't do those as part of the promotional campaigns for films anymore. Now, in the 80s and 90s, they certainly did, and before that. But I grew up in the 80s. That's my formative time. So I have a very large collection of novelizations that were all published in conjunction with some of my favorite films. So I have a whole shelf of those. Absolutely love them. And I want to bring them back. So my whole plan was to do a Dark Wolf Season 1 novelization right after I finished writing Cry Havoc. And of course, Cry Havoc took me a lot longer to write than I anticipated. It takes place in 1968, and doing research from the perspective of that year ended up adding a whole nother layer that I wasn't anticipating at the outset. So even though I had probably my most robust outline to date when it comes to all of the novels, but for Cry Havoc, still taking that and then doing all the research that went into clothing and weapons and tactics and street names, and going in to find photographs of Saigon in 1968 and zooming in and trying to describe what I saw in an old black and white photograph. That just added a lot of layers to the research and writing process for Cry Havoc. So point being, I didn't have the time to do my Dark Wolf novelization that I really wanted to do. So my new plan is, if we get a second season of Dark Wolf, I hope we do, because I see Dark Wolf as a 3-season arc for the Ben Edwards character that gets him to that place where he can do the things that he does in the Terminal List. And we have a awesome outline going right now, or I should say treatment or executive summary on the second season of Dark Wolf. So hopefully we get to do it and bring that to life, because it would be awesome. But
with that second season, my goal now is to release 2 novelizations, one for season 1 and one for season 2. But that means I need to get back to writing.
Memories of Dark Wolf episode 1 that stand out. You're putting all the stuff back on. It's Taylor's show. He's going in. We have that scene at the end, the compound assault, and then Ben Edwards makes that decision. It's going to have these ripple effects throughout the rest of his life. But what memories do you have of filming those scenes? Again, putting on all the gear and having Jared there and Humvees there and blasting into a compound.
Oh man, I remember the 50 cals shooting over our head were so loud. That one, it reminded me a little bit of like when we shot Zero Dark 30, because we had a physical location and we trained up how to, like we rehearsed and trained the operation. And then we rolled the cameras and then we did it. So it felt the same way with Zero Dark 30 when, we're like storming the residence of Osama bin Laden, and we were operating as a team and clearing doors, and each unit, each team had its own like rehearsed, planned part. And so it felt that way. If it was dark and there was gunfire and it felt really good. Like, I remember like, it's funny because I'm a stickler for things like, dude, we have to have our nods down, but we didn't have real NVGs. And so, we were pulling them down, you can't see. And so people are stumbling into each other. And then a few people were like, I remember Taylor was like, I'm not putting them down. Fuck it. I'm just going to go with them up. I was like, yeah, but if we, and in my mind, and this is kind of like the difference between Reece and Ben. He's like, fuck that. I'm not going to have them down. I can't see. I'm just going to go. And I was like, but I have to have them down because if, that's the rules. And I have to like, what if you see me? And then you look at that sequence and you see Taylor going, you can't even see if his NVGs are down or up. And it's moving so great. And I'm like, kind of like stumbling into shit. And I was like, see, this is what. So I remember that. I remember the 50 cals going off. I remember rehearsing the sequence upstairs and seeing Taylor take over in that moment, like what he wanted to do in his mind, and intentionally being like, this is important that I step back here and not try to impose my vision on what his character's doing, because this is his show. And so like, sitting back and watching him take over, which was really cool. And it worked out great. The scene is awesome. And it was also patched together because we shot some in California and then some not in California. And so some was out in Croatia. And so I shot the California stuff. And then I wasn't out in Croatia shooting with the team that was out in Croatia. And so like seeing how technically how that stuff was patched together was really seamless and interesting and expensive. But, the VFX aspects and the intentional tiling of backdrops and, the cut patterns so that you could seamlessly integrate the stuff that we shot at Blue Cow in California into the stuff that we would eventually shoot in Croatia some months later. And then watching the final episode and being like, dude, you can't tell at all that you're in 2 different locations. I thought that was really cool and edifying as like a person who's moving into making more films and television, being part of the collaborative process beyond just acting. It's like, it helped me to understand like, damn, you can do some cool camera tricks to cut 2 locations together. And, so there was that.
Yeah, I forget when I watch it that it was even 2 different locations because it's patched together so seamlessly. It's
yeah.
There's a great picture that Justin Lubin caught of you, our photographer, as you're coming up the steps, and it's like that sunlight, it's kind of like the gold coming through, and you're in the camis that kind of augment or blend with that, and you're coming up the stairs, and there's like a thing of light coming here. It's such a great photo.
Dude, he's the best. Justin does such great photography.
He crushes. And then in that scene, Taylor made that decision to do something that wasn't in the script there, and then also in the subway where he kills the dude in the subway in episode 3. It was supposed to be this long, drawn out like knife fight with all the flashing lights and all this stuff, and then he's like, no, Ben wouldn't do that. Ben would just shoot this guy, and that ends up happening. So.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty cool to see him bring that. It's cool to see all you guys bring that. I've seen that from the first season. You know, now that we've done 3, I love seeing that, what you guys as actors bring to the roles.
Yeah.
Out on the page, because you can only imagine so much when you're here in an air-conditioned office writing, and then when you get it and you turn this thing into your own thing and you bring your past experience to it and all the rest, whatever, it's so cool to see that these things blossom. So that was really cool.
Along with this insignia comes the trust that we put in you to wear it. You've broken that trust.
Second episode, what was it like to see Ben and Raife get their tridents removed, knowing that Jared has such a close connection to that scene, and then saying your goodbyes by the helicopter?
Right.
There was like some emotions going on there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was really powerful. You know, Monica did such a great job, and Taylor and Tom both did such a great job. And yeah, we shot with a real Black Hawk, but that was that blue cloud that was going to be cut into the backdrop in Croatia. And that whole FOB looks amazing. So yeah, that whole sequence was great. I mean, Bruni was sort of walking us through, you know, trying to make it real. I think that's the thing that's maybe to the layperson, such someone like myself, you know, maybe 10 years ago, because now that I've had an opportunity to work closely with SEALs on some of this stuff, I have a deeper understanding of some of the protocols and what could be and wouldn't and wouldn't be considered authentic. But like that ceremony, for example, it's really specific, and you want to get it right. You want people who've ever been in a ceremony like that or understand how that's supposed to be. You know, if people have worn the uniform and ever seen something like that, like you want them to say, wow, we cared enough to get that right. And that was something that Bruni was really helping with in that moment. He's great. And Jared, of course, was really helping, but Jared was also acting in the scene. And so Taylor was really great. I think, you know, he wanted to hold on to that emotion because he didn't want to let it go in front of his men, in front of his boys. And at the same time, you know, he didn't regret what he did, but he's really sorry that it costs Raife what it cost Raife. And so I think he did a really great job of keeping it in the pocket. And I loved seeing, you know, AJ and all those guys doing that whole like cut that, like, it looks like the haka sort of, you know, New Zealand All Blacks like rugby thing.
Chief Edward!
Chief Edward!
Lieutenant Hastings!
Lieutenant Hastings!
Thank you.
You know, it feels like the group of swashbuckling pirates saying bye to their men who are being forced to walk the plank or something like that. There was something really special about that. And, you know, there's a little bit of levity there with the Bigfoot picture and with the handing over the book. I thought that whole sequence was just really great.
Just so you know, that's the scale.
Yeah, that was really cool. And Taylor said the emotion that he had in the helicopter was like serious emotion. He was leaving.
This Q&A is brought to you by Staccato. All right, this is from Chicken Little on X, the Chicky Little. I just finished the Terminal List, and that ending, wow. The morality of Reece in the books is questionable as opposed to the series. When she says, and this is Katie, when she says, "How did you know?" And he replies, "I didn't." That was like, yikes, that's hardcore. Was that choice deliberate? And this is pointing to one of the final chapters in the book, The Terminal List. And I remember exactly where I was when I was writing that. And when I wrote that line, I thought that's this book encapsulated in one or two sentences here. So it's Katie's in shock. She's just had, it's a little different than the TV show, if you guys have seen the TV show and not read the book. But at the end of the book, Katie has det cord wrapped around her head. Ben Edwards is right there. There's a couple other people in the room as well. And he's about to, James Reece doesn't put down his gun. He's going to blow off Katie's head. His finger's going to come off the detonator. So he's already pressed it down. And so if he gets shot, his thumb comes off the detonator and Katie's head explodes. So he tells that to Reece, and Reece kills Horn, Secretary of Defense, and Ben can't believe it. And then he kills Ben Edwards, and his thumb comes off the trigger. And then I go to the next chapter, and Katie's head does not blow up. And she's kind of in shock. Things are on fire. It's a little bit of chaos. They get outside. They need to get to the airstrip where Liz Riley is coming in the plane in the Pilatus to get them out of there. And so they're rushing through all that, and they get to that little airport on Fisher's Island, and they get Katie aboard the aircraft, and Reece is there in the doorway, and she turns to him. She snaps out of that stupor and says, "How did you know that my head wouldn't blow off when Ben's finger comes off that detonator?" And Reece says, "I didn't." Then he shuts the door and runs towards the marina. And that, when I wrote that, I mean, just talking about it gets me excited right there. I remember exactly where I was on Fisher's Island writing that. I'd walked the path that they're gonna walk, the whole thing, been to the airport, the whole deal. And I remember when I wrote that, I thought that line right there, "I didn't," is this book encapsulated in one line of dialogue. So that was pretty cool. But then I had to figure out how you get these two characters together after saying something like that. And I didn't have it figured out yet for True Believer. So as you know, Katie is not, if you've read the book, Katie is not in that book very much. And I had to think, how do I bring these two back together? And then I started writing Savage Son. And then it came to me. So the answer is in Savage Son.
What did it feel like arriving in Budapest? So we get to the end. You're back in it here in Wolf. You fly out to Budapest. We get to link up. We had a fantastic time out there. What did it feel like arriving there, I guess, personally, but then also what did it feel like to step back into James Reece's shoes? You're coming right off Warrior Kid, and you get in there and you bring the platoon to save the day in the final episode. And then also, though, you know what happens, and so does the audience, what's going to happen at the end of the Terminalist. What was those things like?
You know, it was from the perspective of a person who's walking in back onto a show, having not been part of the production process, but just, you know, seeing cuts coming in and watching as episodes come in and giving notes on scripts and, like, you know, communicating with the team via email and text and phone calls and FaceTimes, and not having boots on the ground and being amongst them. It felt a little strange to come back. And I remember being a little nervous, but then just so relieved, and meeting Paul there. And he had such like a specific vision, and like I felt rusty. Like I tried to get into the scene and I wasn't working, and he came in and walked me through it, and Jared came and walked me through it. So it took me a second. It's like you know, I had gone and done 2 movies, I think, in the space of time that we were shooting that show. And so when I came back, it took me a second to kind of get back into it. And you know, I was able to get there, which was great. But seeing the group and seeing how hard everyone was working, how fast everyone was working, seeing the relationships that had been built up while I was gone, it made me kind of sad that I wasn't able to be there the whole time. And you know, I felt a little bit of like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. You know, it wasn't, I don't want to say I felt guilty or anything like that, but it felt like, I don't know, it probably felt like what it'll feel like to send my kid off to college and then come see him after a semester and see like, oh, he's kind of living without me, you know, or she's living without me. And so I felt like my baby had flown out of the nest, and I was coming to watch her fly, and kind of longing for the days that she lived in the nest, you know. So it made me really eager to get back into Terminalist season 2.
There we go. We just did, you know, just a few months later, back on the ground, starting in South Africa, moving up to Toronto, and then on to Morocco. I mean, it's amazing. I can't wait for people to see that. And just a couple more here at the end to talk about everybody else that we had in this team dynamic. We have Ben, Raife, we have Mo, we have Landry, Eliza, Tal, and Haverford. So we have this really cool group of people and kind of like a unique team put together for Dark Wolf. And as you said, you weren't in all those scenes where they're having meetings and doing their missions here through episodes 3 through 7. What are your takeaways from the team dynamic and those actors and what they brought to the role?
I really loved the team dynamic.
Don't worry, ladies. You're all equally pretty.
So Eliza, who's played by Rona Lee Shimon, I thought she was fantastic. I love Fauda. I love the Mossad aspect of it. It really opens it up and makes it feel, certainly more international and outside of the theater of war in the Middle East. It was like set in this Eastern European, um, you know, setting, and we've got all these amazing actors, and I think Dar Salim is so good, and I loved him in The Covenant, and saw him, and I was like, he has to play Mo, and Luke does such a good job as Landry, and when you see who he is as Landry in Dark Wolf, and then go on to see what we shot in season 2 of Terminalist, wow, the arc there is amazing, and a huge discovery was great, and I love being part of this was Shiraz, who plays Tal. She's so good. And I knew it from the first time I saw her audition. I was like, oh, that's her. That's her. And I was right, man. She's a total star. She's smart and funny and just owns it. I think the best actors just own it. Like you have what's written on the page, and then you have an actor who just comes in and makes it their own. And she did that in such an amazing way. And then, oh, Robert, so good, man. His voice, I'm a huge fan of The Wire. I thought he did a great job, and just loved him so much. So yeah, it's a fantastic cast, international sort of diverse group, which was really truly was a strength for this show to have the point of view of Mossad agents, to have the point of view of someone from South Africa who's raised in America, to have the point of view of Ben Edwards, like to see him start to kind of go down that path of wanting to play with fuck the breaks. I loved it. I thought it was really cool and interesting too, because I mean we had to get Ben, we had to tell Ben's story, we had to get him out of the teams and into this new world. So from episode 1 to episode 2, there's a bit of a jarring recalibration of what the show is. It pivots on its axis early and becomes a show that's not set in the Middle East, but is now set in Eastern European and global spycraft. And once you make that leap and you get into the story there, it just really takes off. And I mean, I loved it. I really, really loved it.
Your friend wants in.
Yeah, well, he doesn't know the CIA like I do.
It's awesome. For some reason, my wife's favorite episode is episode 2 with Tom Hopper swimming in that pool. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Maybe
we should replace him.
Yeah. I think, yeah, he's kind of every wife's favorite. I don't know what that is. It's interesting. Yeah, me too.
We were just in London. We linked up with him for lunch in London last week or the week before, and had a great time catching up with him. He's so excited about this series.
He's such a great dude. He's such a great dude. Wonderful family, beautiful wife, 2 great kids. A very decent human being. Yeah. And you just want him to be like a bit of an asshole because he's so handsome and fit and tall and strapping, but he's not. It's like so frustrating. I think he should be Bond.
I know. That's what everybody says. Every time I post a Dark Wolf picture that has him in it, they ask about Bond in episode 2 when he's all dressed up and doing that thing with the suppressor on the pistol the suppressed pistol, actually nuclear suppressed on that one. But it was, he does look like he's got the vibe.
He's got the vibe down.
Yeah. I think they should go back and do the books in time as historical, because you have to reset from Daniel Craig era for Bond.
Right.
You could go back and place them in the 50s when they were started out. And so you have this post-World War II veteran, the intelligence services and the Navy and all that, and do it as a period piece. He's driving an old Bentley blower from the 20s at the time. So it's already a classic car in the 50s. But you can do that to reset the series so that everyone's not now just going to comparing it to the Craig era, which is going to be very.
I think that's a smart move. I think that's really a smart move.
They should get Tom Hopper in there.
Maybe we should have you at Amazon pitching your version of Bond. Why don't you screenwrite Bond?
Talk about it every chance I get, as you just saw, how this mention of Bond, I dive in with that.
See, look, you are known to predict the future, so you saw it here first.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I guess from that initial outset, the first time you read The Terminalist, Jared gives it to you. I have a picture of you reading it as you're going to do press for another film. And what drew you to James Reece and The Terminalist to begin with?
Well, my relationship with Jared was primarily the main reason I originally read it. He was like, you should read this book. I think it could be cool. And I read the book and I was like, damn, that would be cool. And, at the time we were talking about making it a movie. And so I knew that Antoine was circling the material. I had worked with Antoine on Magnificent Seven, so I just called him with no reps and said, "Yo, are you interested in this?" He's like, "Yeah, I love it. It's great." I said, "I love it too, but let's not start a bidding war between the two of us. Let's just partner up on it." And so, I think I ended up, we partnered up, and basically I bought the rights knowing that he would be my partner on it. And so that's what we did. And oftentimes you put things into development, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything beyond them just going into development. It's like you're cooking 20 different things on the fire. You're probably only going to have time to eat two or three of them. But this one was one that went into development, and we were trying to develop the movie version of it. But there had been a movie version of something kind of like this. I'm not going to say what it was because I didn't think it was very good. And the problem with telling a story like this in 90 to 120 minutes is you've got your typical 3 act structure, and in the end you need a guy to it's really hard. It's really hard to compress everything down. You can't get into all of the characters, and the novel's amazing because the novelization of a story is great because you get time to slow cook some of the character beats. And so it wasn't long into development where we realized that a movie version of this particular story wouldn't be as good as like a limited series. And so I think, adjusted some of the language to say, could we develop this for TV? And then we started to develop it for TV. And so initially, my relationship with Jared, but then ultimately what caused us to take this out of development, put it into series was, just momentum of pushing on it and realizing it's shot in California, that worst case scenario would be a great standalone limited series, but that there was also potential that it can go on to do more episode or more seasons. And I wanted to work with Jared. But what's wild now is because looking at Jared, he's one of the very top dogs. But at the time, as we were putting this thing together, people didn't look at him that way. They looked at him as he'd been training me for a couple of movies, and so getting me in shape, and we were living together at this time, and it was like he was my friend. And so people underestimated his contribution. And he's had such a massive contribution to the first season, but I think I think he's credited as like a tech advisor or something like that. And now there's no way anyone could do any of this stuff without him. He's got almost like when you're not there, I think he and Dave have final say on everything. And so he's grown so much. So that really, seeing my relationship with him was a big part of wanting to push this thing so we could work together. I could shoot in California. I could play a SEAL. We partnered with Dave. We made the sale. He started doing the episodes, writing the episodes. It was really tough development process. We changed it a bunch, and ultimately just went back to the book. It diverted away from the book for too long. And anyways, I'm rambling here, but my initial thing, yeah, that's my initial thing. Working with Jared, working with you, and then
What'd you like about James Reece though, the character?
oh, dude, James Reece was my opportunity to play the Punisher. Like I'm already an MCU character. The one MCU character I always wanted to play was the Punisher. And I was like, growing up, the way I grew up in the sort of 1980s Cold War pop culture as a gun nut kid, I think every man, and that's why it had connected to such a great audience, is like, I don't think you're not a man unless you sit back and fantasize what you would do if someone came and fucked with your family. You know what I mean? And that's what the Punisher is. Like he's like, I got the guns, I got the goods, I got the skills, and you're all gonna fucking pay. And I loved that about him. It was like I'm getting goosebumps right there. It was like, this is the Punisher, and I got to be the Punisher. So I got to exact vengeance on someone who took my loved ones away from me. And I think there's a bit of the way women will, I don't want to make generalizations here, but like the women will watch Wuthering Heights and be like, I just want a man to love me that way. I think men fantasize about different shit. We fantasize about what we would do if someone took what was mine and I had the guns, and you'd all fucking die. You know what I mean? So I think that was like one thing I loved about James Reece.
Oh, there's all those memes that have what women are thinking and what men are thinking, and like how women want to die and they're like in their bed, like when they're older, and it shows like somebody with a broadsword like this, and all the horses are just going and they have the music playing, and it's like what the guy's thinking about. Or
have you seen the bleed out spot trend?
I don't know what that is.
At the bleed out spot, it's like women are like, what does this even mean? But guys see it and they're like, I know exactly what it means. So it's like basically you picture a beautiful spot where the snow is falling and like there's a stream in the distance and there's mountains and this is my bleed out spot. Like if I was bleeding out in this spot, I'd be at peace. Like this is where I can imagine myself, bleeding out after fighting for my family and getting shot and like fighting for justice and I died, but this is the spot I'd be content if it was here. So like the bleed out spot is the way you compliment a piece of nature or something like that. It's like, oh, I would love to bleed out here. And when you say that to my wife, she's like, oh, it's just a weird way to explain why you like something. I was like, you don't get it.
Have you ever seen that meme? There's the guy like in bed with the girl, and he's leaning this way, and she's
Yeah.
leaning this way, and she's wondering. He's probably thinking about other women, and then he says, whatever the meme is, but
Yeah.
there's one that says, "I wonder if the tomahawk that Frank Quinn gives to Tom Reese is the same one that James Reece uses in the terminal list." It's so great. It's so good. And then look
That's
at this
good.
over here. So somebody gave me that. I have some original artwork over there, but right next to Bond, then right there, that is Mack Bolan from the 80s, the Executioner. So
Yes.
by Don Pendleton in the late 60s. And maybe it's still going today. I don't know, but it was big for me. And the artwork was really cool on those books. They're like pulp novels in the 80s was where I discovered them. But
Yeah.
a lot of people say that The Punisher was inspired by the Mack Bolan
Oh,
books.
really? Oh, that
Very
makes sense.
interesting. Yeah, and so that's because that's a part of my life experience reading those books. There's a underlying foundation that becomes, part of the terminal list, just like all the other books and films and television shows and novels
Right.
were to become part of that foundation. So that interesting that you say Punisher because right there, that guy probably also inspired the
That's
Punisher.
epic. That's
Yeah,
so good.
yeah. Somebody gave me that on book tour. I have another one out there with Able Team and Phoenix Force, and then him in the middle of it. But
Nice. I got to ask you, like, how many of your books were, in hindsight, look like prophecy?
well, you can even go to the terminal list and talk about testing drugs on people. So
Yeah.
there's that side of it. Then there's True Believer, which has the Russian invasion of Ukraine. There's that side. Devil's Hand. We have a bioweapon released throughout a populace. So that became very
Bioweapon released throughout the populace and, government overreach and shutting things down and how society reacts to something catastrophic like that.
yeah. So it's the
Yeah.
enemy, what the enemy had learned. And it wasn't supposed to really be like that from the beginning, but I'm writing it. And the whole theme of that book was what does the enemy learn from us by watching us on the battlefield in Iraq and Afghanistan and how they incorporated those lessons into their battle plans.
Right.
COVID hits and summer of unrest, all this stuff is going on. And so I'm like, well, the enemy's learning from those things as well. How would they incorporate those things? So
Right.
it became quite timely, and I incorporated those things into the theme and the premise because that's what the theme was to begin with. So there's that one. And then In the Blood AI, having Alice before anyone had heard of Chat GPT, having
Right.
this all-knowing entity that is connected everywhere. So that was kind of a big one.
Yeah. Then you also had, didn't you have, what was the, was it, which book was it that has the Hamas attacking kibbutzes or something
Yeah, that's In the Blood as
in the blood?
Literally the Dead in the Blood. Yeah, it's In the Blood as well. So that's a little October 7th type of thing. But I think that's more of a reach. A lot of authors try to say they predicted the future type of a thing. I mean,
Right.
there have been incursions, of course,
Yeah,
going on.
yeah, 100%. There have been, yeah, it's not like
But still,
he
I'll take
predicted
credit for it.
that the Israelis and the Palestinians would have conflict.
I
I mean,
predicted that.
who knew?
I predicted that. I was the first one
Yeah.
to ever put it out.
But it's so crazy to see how like your finger is on the pulse of geopolitical affairs to such a degree, and you write about them, and then you see them springing up around the globe at the same time. So it just lets us know really that you're just really insightful about geopolitics, and I think that's what makes I'm a fan of yours. Is not just being your friend, your hunting buddy, and your coworker and co-producer, but just as a fan of your novels, as a reader of your novels. That's something I really love about your books is like feel like you're kind of getting some inside information.
Well, maybe sometimes we are, but no, thank you. I sincerely appreciate those kind words. And one of them I actually wrote in. It wasn't the main point to the story, but it was more like background, kind of geopolitical background. And I talked about oil going from Iran to China and why that's significant on the global stage. And of course, that's, we're all learning a lot more about that now, especially
Right.
over the last few days. So that's kind of crazy. And that was just a singular point that I put in there, just to build kind of out some background. But yeah, that was a while ago too. I did that. Like that must be 3 years ago I did that. But my one big takeaway from this is that James Reece 8 needs to be James Reece 8 Escape from LA. Or something along those lines. So it's not for anybody who's listening. I have a whole nother thing going on. Maybe it'll be James Reece 9 Escape from LA, or maybe it's like in the unfinished subway system or whatever underneath LA, or maybe it's
Ooh, that's good.
something like that. I might edit that out so no one steals it. But something in LA, check. There we go. And yeah, Jared again. We got to say, Jared, right here, got the Be Light shirt from Jared, and gave you the book. He technical advisor on the first thing. Boozer, for those listening, he plays Boozer in all of the seasons thus far. Technical advisor, like essentially coordinating a lot of the stunts, working with the stunt team, getting all those things plotted out and all that on the ground, and then writing. I mean, executive producer now, but then also
Executive producer
writing
and writer. Yeah.
amazing. It's incredible.
100%. And he's the guy who, every director who comes in, I say, hey, listen, I want you to do your thing. 100%, totally respect your process. Let's work together. There's going to be moments where Jared's going to come up and talk to me. You just got to let us have our conversations. And he's the guy who, like, he's kind of the comp for me. Like when I'm playing James Reece, I'm kind of doing an impression of Jared. I'm trying to play him. You know what I mean? So like you too. I mean, you guys are both real life, SEALs. And so like, but that Jared is the guy, there's a seriousness about him. And he's also very funny and witty and charming and funny and, all those things. But like, there's an element of, there's a time for jokes and then there's a time for seriousness. The time for jokes is no problem for me. I can always find that. But the time for seriousness is something that I miss out on sometimes. And so he'll come up to me and just like pull my shirt and just like give me a look. And it's like, if I get the look from Jared, the nod of approval from Jared, I'm like, yes, I know I ate in that scene. That's good.
Oh, man, that is awesome. And also 208. I know this is jumping to Terminalist season 2. I know I talked to you about this already. I told you how great that episode is. They're all awesome, but watching that one and how you finish this season, I can't wait for people to see it. Terminalist season 2. We can't divulge. We don't even exactly know when it's dropping yet, but it's awesome. You absolutely crush. Everybody crushes it, but I love how you end this season. It is so fantastic. So thank you for that.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And what did it feel like to step back on set, gear up, and pick up the tomahawk as James Reece again?
It felt great, man. It felt great. It was it's interesting because it's a completely different season of television than the first one. We even shift tone in a way because the first season is a psychological thriller, and because of what's going on in James Reece's head, there's elements of it early on in the pilot where they almost like feel like vibes of horror, when he's looking at the picture of his daughter and then all of a sudden he kind of has a little dream or a cutaway to him seeing a bad guy and then running in with his gun to kill the bad guy, and then all of a sudden he's looking at his own self. The conflations, the way we shot the flashbacks, it's not down the road thriller. There's a psychological thriller aspect, and him as an unreliable narrator, not knowing whether or not he's responsible for killing his family. Like we stylized the first season in a way that was different than the book because we didn't want to front load the bad guys. We wanted to kind of reveal them and keep them as a mystery, and it's a little bit different than the first book. So that was a tone shift to the second book because now we know what's going on with James Reece. It was a reveal that he had tumors in his head that were causing these conflations in the first season, but now we know, and we also know that he's dying essentially of these from this tumor in his head. And so, going into the second season, I had to try to trim down and lose weight and look like a guy who's been on a boat for however long he's been, and I tried to be mindful around playing the symptoms, but not overplaying the symptoms of this tumor. I was, taking on more responsibility as an executive producer on this season than I did in the first season. I felt like just because I knew more about what was going on than the first season. The first season I optioned it, but I was primarily just focused on acting. And then the second season I had this option. But it was after Dark Wolf, and I was focusing not just on the acting aspects, but I just felt a little more comfortable having a little more control over what was going on around us. Had my finger on the sort of pulse of various departments, and we're shooting at an location. I was fucking sick, dude. I got hit with the tick bite fever on day one,
I know. I
and
can't
I
believe
got E.
that. That was
coli.
so wild.
Bro, I was struggling. In Africa, I was really struggling. And I try not to let anybody know, but dude, that was very hard. And I mean, I remember waking up from a fever dream from the tick bite fever, and the first thing I did was not rewrite, but like, yeah, I guess I rewrote a scene and sent it off to you guys. I was like, I just realized something, you guys, that this is gonna, and it was actually very helpful. So like, I had this crazy dream about what needed to happen in the show. So it was like, that's how deep into it I was. Is like, I had a 104-degree fever in a bed, sweating through my sheets, and I was like, oh no, we need to fix the Beast story arc because something's not quite working. But and then I got E. coli, so I like had the shits, and I was flying back and forth, and I was going back to LA and back home. I wore like a legit adult diaper on the plane because I knew the only way that I could land in LA and be present with my family is if I took a sleeping pill to try to sleep. But I also had E. coli, so I was like, if I take a sleeping pill, I'm going to shit my pants on this plane, and then everyone on the British Airway flight is going to be like, dude, that's the dude from Guardians of the Galaxy. That's James Reece from the Terminalist. I think he shit up his back last night. And so I was literally wearing a giant adult diaper as I flew home. Thankfully didn't shit myself. But it was bad, dude. It was a struggle. I don't it wasn't that. I mean, look, it was hard. I'm gonna be honest, it was hard. But at the same time, I was grateful to do it. And so you're not gonna catch me complaining about it. But it was, he asked me how it was. It was awesome and hard. And having you there, having Jared there, it was just epic. Like I remember one point where I was looking around and we're on the beach in South Africa, and I'm swimming in and at low light, and I'm like, there's sharks out in the water, and I'm swimming through them, and I'm landing, and I'm taking and Jared's there making sure to like kind of keep me focused. And I was like, dude, this is what you dream of. This is the kind of stuff you dream of when you get into Hollywood. Like, what do you want to do? What wild locations on the earth do you want to lug a camera to? And what stories do you want to tell on them? And it was just, and who do you want to do it with? It was awesome. So that was really special.
Dude, that looks so good too. I mean, when you
Oh,
watch,
dude, that whole episode one is just, it's a movie. It's like they're all movies. We made like 8 movies.
it's amazing. I mean, that's for those listening. That's True Believers, Terminalist season 2. We're talking Dark Wolf, but that
Of
was
course.
amazing. That was
Yeah, that was
incredible.
amazing.
And then I got pretty sick too coming back from Morocco. It
Oh
was like
yeah.
2 week. I was down for like 2 weeks. I've
Yeah.
never experienced anything like that. I canceled any appearance that was happening because I couldn't even sit in front of the TV or the computer for that long. It was
Really?
Giardia is what they
You had Giardia?
yeah, coming from Morocco.
You got the
And
beaver fever, bro.
bad. And it could be from Chicago because we went right from Morocco to Chicago for the UFC fight for Dark Wolf. So it's possible it was
I think it might have been Morocco. I'm just gonna say,
so bad. It was rough. It was rough. But yeah, that's why when we watched season 1, we're jumping to True Believer right now, but seeing the Africa episode, I
yeah,
mean,
dude.
being able to go back there, if we could do a Hastings family Africa thing and
Yeah,
film
dude.
there with all those locations,
Bro.
just all that varied terrain plus the city, everything else there, like it's so beautiful as far as what we captured in episode 1. It's just amazing.
I
Episode 2.
agree. And it takes a real grit and toughness to live there and to work there and to shoot there. And I think our team has it. Like I think like of the people that we work with, we could thrive there.
Yeah, and you get the old school looking Land Cruisers everywhere. You get it's good.
Everywhere you point the camera, it's beautiful, and it's cinematic. It's just gorgeous. And the crews work their asses off. And the actors that we hired, the local actors were so good.
Good.
Yeah, it's a great place to shoot. I had a great time in South Africa.
Hopefully, we can go back for a Hastings family thing. We shall see. I mean, you guys are all great
people, and you bring that energy to set, all of you. There's not one person who is ever down. And and they all take that. I think everybody takes that from you on set, by the way. Like, and like looking to you, you talked about leadership earlier. Same thing in the SEAL teams. They're looking to that platoon commander, that troop commander. You set the tone for everybody, whether it's under fire or in garrison. And you do that on set. Doesn't matter how tired you are. Doesn't matter how long that night was before, how early that call was the next day, whatever's going on. You are right there inspiring that entire set of like 350 people there, and then other people who are via email and text and everything else that are supporting from the outside. And so that part, I think that's truly amazing that you do that, because you're that commanding officer on set essentially, and everything you do filters down, and you happen to inspire everybody on set just through who you are. So it's really cool.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot. That's really that's great. I appreciate that. Early in my career, I remember seeing people who were number one on the call sheet, and I was not, and I saw that they were getting what they wanted. But the way they were getting what they wanted was by being really confrontational. And in my experience at that point, I looked up to them like they're number one on the call sheet. They're the leaders here. And it was kind of seeing that was the first time I really doubted myself as an actor, because I was like, I just don't think I'm capable of that. Like there was like even like sometimes, I don't want to say cruelty, but it was like an indifference to whether or not demanding what you need brought somebody else down. I'm always been a bit more deferential in expressing my needs. I'm kind of thoughtful about what that might mean for somebody else, if it's an inconvenience for somebody else. I saw this guy who was number one on the call sheet, did not give a crap about whether his demands and his needs made anyone else uncomfortable. He needed what he needed. And then I watched him, and he was great. But the mood sucked because everybody around him was treated poorly in order for him to get what he needed. And that was the first time I really doubted myself, because when I first made it into Hollywood, I was like, dude, I'm going. I know I can do this. I felt strongly that I could do it, because I felt like it was my destiny. But then I saw that and I thought, oh, if this is what it takes, then I don't know I have that in me to have someone walk away from an interaction with me feeling like shit, knowing that I had it. So anyways, long story, I ended up seeing that many years later. One of the ADs who worked on that project with me was working on another project with me, and that actor's name came up, and he was like, fuck that guy, no, I'm not working with him. And that was in that moment that I thought, oh, wait a minute, that is only good in the short term. In the long term, that behavior is actually really bad for your career. And it's not that I do this I'm not the way I am because out of some opportunism or because I want like my career to take off. It's like it just kind of innately who I am. But I remember in that moment thinking like, damn, I reflected on that. Wow, there was once a moment when that guy had me feeling insecure about whether or not I had it in me to do this business. But now I realize that behavior that was making me feel so insecure is actually really bad for his career. And so, yeah, he said, yeah, his name came up, and I said, no, I'm not going to work with him. And he didn't get the job, and someone else got the job, and he never even knew it,
Wow. Who was it? Just kidding. I'm just kidding. But you can tell that you can tell that on set, and everybody can tell that on set. When everybody asks you like if you need anything, you can see it in your face first that you think about everybody else, and it's really cool to see, because you don't have to say it, like you can just sense it when I'm watching everything and learning and checking everything out. When I'm there, you can really sense it. It's really cool. But also I think about, my gosh, how exhausted it gets. Exhausting. We have helicopters flying around, cars blowing up, you're getting on and off of these things, you're moving through, you're doing all this stuff, there's hand-to-hand combat sequences, all that, like that's exhausting. And then you have the scenes where it's just like you and another actor also exhausting for an entire set. Just, okay, everybody quiet, boom, okay, blah, blah, blah. Like there, it doesn't matter how crazy a set is, like it's exhausting for everybody. How much more exhausting would it be if like the number one on the call sheet was had this just made everyone miserable on set at the same time? But I think also the way that you inspire everybody, it inspires them to bring their best. Like we're working with such high quality people. Yeah, they're going to do a great job regardless. But when they're taking those cues from you and are inspired by you every day, they're going to up it. It's just human nature to do
I
that.
love that. I love that. That's great. Yeah, that's it. That's it. And then you see it sometimes, and I think if like if there's anybody who's watching this, who's a young actor or yeah, really any profession that you're in, just understand that, attitude is contagious, and you have to make sure yours is worth catching.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. And then also I have to say, taking it back to the beginning, that people come up to me on set when we're there, when I'm there, and they say, "Hey, thank you for writing these books. Thank you for this job." They're thanking me for these things. And I always say, no, I mean, it is because Chris Pratt optioned this thing and then took it on board, championed it, made it happen. Why all 350 people here are on these sets, but they're thanking me constantly when I'm on set. But for sure, none of this would have happened without you optioning it and then championing this whole thing. So sincerely, thank you for me. And everybody, if they don't tell you personally, if they're like, somebody afraid to come up and tell you on set because there's so much stuff going on, they're all thinking it and they all come up and tell me. So I want to pass that on to you. So thank you from me, from the bottom of my heart, and from everybody that's working on these sets.
Oh man, listen. It's been such a blessing. It's a team effort, man. All of us couldn't have done it without each other. So I thank you as well, man. But it's truly been my pleasure. I've had such a blast doing it. I want to keep doing it.
All right. What's next? Are we getting a season two? I know where we stand, but I don't know what the best way to answer that is.
I'm very hopeful. I think, I know that Amazon loves the show. I know they love us. I know our fans are a rabid fan base. I'm saying that we will get a pickup, and that it's just the nature of not knowing yet has probably more to do with just some regime change things that have happened at Amazon as they've kind of shuffled their executive deck a little bit, and we've got new people in charge over at Amazon. And this business is rapidly evolving from both on the movie side and on the television streaming side. And so I think shows like this that are a big hit, that have a lot of people watching them, that have a particular audience, high acquisition rate, high completion rate, I think it looks very good. And I believe in the entire Jack Carr Cinevision universe, and the Terminalist flagship show, the season 2 of the Terminalist, Dark Wolf. We've got our Cry Havoc pitch coming up. We've got this 10-year plan. I think they'd be fools not to pick it up. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get the full order on everything we want.
Amazing. And Savage Son, people are gonna be like, why didn't you ask him about Savage Son? What do we think? I know we have a lot of talks coming up and everything, but what do we
think? Savage Son is a very, very compelling next step for James Reece. There's a lot of wet cement and a lot of people that need to sign off on it, and beyond me and you and Dave and Amazon and the studio and everything. So I think we have to figure out how to make it work. Like you said, it's hard, and so making sure all this stuff work. But damn, that book is such a great standalone. I think it could be epic.
That'd be a good one. Before I let you go, I know I've showed you this before, but for other people that are watching this, there you are watching over me as I
nice
up there. So there we are together, and there's the
yes
Terminalist poster.
I didn't know we were on the cover of Ballistic.
Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Look at those guys right there. The lights are kind of on. It looks a little strange. Let me do this.
I love it.
Yeah, there we go. Now the lights might be off it. There you are.
Nice.
So looking down right there. There's Mack Bolan right there.
There he is.
Next to Bond, right there. Hemingway's typewriter, a little dictionary from the 60s for Cry Havoc. And then out here, I'll show you. I'm not going to try not to show the floor because it's a little bit messy from all the research I've been doing. There, look at that.
Yo, yeah, I have one of those too. That's epic.
Amazing. Isn't that cool? Love that. And then Jared got that for me. That's what you carried in the Terminalist right there. That's what you carried. And so it has a little thing right there, but that's Chris Pratt, James Reece carried. And then this is right there. That's the whole Mack Bolan Able Team and Phoenix Force original art
Yes.
from the 80s. So
Dude, that's epic.
it said Punisher right there. So
Well, I got to show you this. I got to show you in the audience this.
oh, there it is. There's some blood on there.
Yeah, that's real blood because
Nice.
this is the actual canvas from the UFC fight that we all went to when we were promoting the Terminal List. And I think it was who was it was very prolific fighter gets he bled a lot that night. I'm trying to think of what it's
Plating it with Dark Wolf, but that is awesome. That is so cool.
that's his real blood. And I sent it down to like Frames Plus and didn't tell them that it was a absolute hazardous material. But there you go. It looks like it was this was the canvas. Hunter Campbell and Dana White cut that off the canvas and sent it to me, and I framed it, and I have one, and Jared has one.
That's killer.
Oh God, I'm trying to think. I know whose blood it is, but I can't think of his name right now. That sucks.
I love it. I love it. I got a corner of it. I got a little bit of blood out there. I don't have that thing, but I got it in the podcast studio out there. But
nice.
Man, that's awesome. Oh, bro, thank you so much, and thank you for taking so much time. And I appreciate it. Look at that. That's from Dark Wolf Premiere. Right.
Yes.
What a great night that was.
Dude, that was so good.
It's so much.
I remember
fun.
I got tears in my eyes when Hell's Bells started playing at the opening scene or the opening, episode in the pilot. I was like, oh God, it was so cool, man. It felt great. Getting the band back together was good.
For this next one, I want to really push for 2 episodes because it would go like 50 minutes each type of a thing. So not quite 2 hours. So I think we can get away with doing 2 episodes. I think more, especially for that sort of a premiere type thing. Maybe start a little earlier so we can get to the after party in time. Whatever. But if both, I think 2 episodes to make it like a movie for a premiere.
I love it.
Push for that. And then there's my little card from Dark Wolf where I got to go back to CIA headquarters. Second cameo of the series, which was cool of Dark Wolf, and got to see a whole bunch of people that came down that didn't need to be there that day to say hi, since it had been a while since I'd been there. It was in a different capacity before, of course, but I snagged my ID. But,
nice, that's epic, dude. Oh, I love it. I need one.
Oh man, dude, thank you so much again. Appreciate everything. Thanks for taking the time today, for bringing all you do to James Reece, for being who you are on screen and more importantly off screen. And just from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Thank you, man. It's my pleasure. I love you, Jack. It's great seeing you, brother.
Thanks for everything.
All right, thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Dark Wolf Season 1 podcast. If you like this video, check out The Fourth Option, my upcoming novel, May 12th, coming in hot, hardcover ebook and audiobook. Find the trailer here and the author insight video here.